I'm not going to lie to you. Trenches for 2024, still a bit of a concern for me for the Florida Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free reviews in the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Wednesday. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find our Florida Gators Dynasty with Whole Nine Sports. It's WHOLENINE Sports on YouTube. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And we are talking about the trenches today because, my goodness, I'm just not sold yet. Maybe when training camp happens and we see some things, maybe I will be. But as it presently stands, I need to see more. If I'm just being completely brutally honest, I still need to see more. And I'm starting with the defensive line here because it will be relevant when we talk about the offensive line next segment. Just because, again, I do think it's relevant to go D-line first here because with the defensive line, you lost. I understand. No one, like Florida Gators fans, don't care about this. I'm just going through the transfer losses. You lost two guys who played pretty significant snaps in Princely and Monmielen on the edge and Chris McClellan on the interior of the defensive line. And when I say defensive line, I mean your front four. So in this case, that's your nose tackle, your 3, your F, and your jack linebacker, because that's who's playing out there, right? And so you lost Princely, who played the 3rd most snaps on the entire team. You lost Chris McClellan, who played the 12th most snaps in the entire team. Chris McClellan played more snaps last season than Cam Jackson and Kelby Collins, than TJ Searcy. Like he played a lot of snaps. And so you've lost significant contributors, right? So I don't know what the pass rush is going to look like. Genuinely, I think it'll be better, but I don't know. That's where my discomfort, I guess. I was going to say uncomfortability. That doesn't sound right. My discomfort comes from is that I don't know what the pass rush is going to look like. I don't know who's going to generate it. I know that a lot of Florida Gators fans dislike Princely or whatever. He had the most pass rush. He had the most pressures on the team by almost double the next guy. He had one of the highest pressure numbers in all of college football last year. He had one of the highest pass rush win rates in all of college football last year. I just want to get that out of just, I understand a lot of Florida Gators fans don't like him, think he was a bad run defender, took plays off. All of that warranted. Fact remains, he was one of the most productive pass rushers in the country last year. Sacks weren't there, but general pass rushing, one of the most productive guys while spending 25% of his snaps in coverage. You lost a productive pass rusher. Whether or not you're happy or sad, doesn't matter. You lost a productive pass rusher. Chris McClellan, not as much of a big loss there, but still had one of your better interior rushers. Again, not great, but one of your better interior rushers there. And so for me, I look at this defensive line of the expected, 3 interior guys are Cam Jackson, Caleb Banks, and Joey Slackman. Cam Jackson, I don't think is ever going to be a good pass rusher. That's not a knock on him at all. I want to make that clear as well. That's not a knock on Cam Jackson at all. He's a pure nose tackle. Is what he is. Like that's his skill set. That's what he does. So I don't really expect him to be much of a pass rusher ever. Even when he goes to the NFL, I don't think he'll do that. I think I look at him the same way I look at like Snacks Harrison. I go, yep, you're just going to eat blocks, handle that. I don't expect you to do much pass rushing. Like Haloti Nada, stuff like that. Caleb Banks, 2nd best pass rusher last year. I think he was very hot and cold in terms of he was either winning his rep or not even coming close. I feel like there were very few stalemates for Caleb Banks, and most of his production came, one, early in the season, and 2 against bad competition. Like his best pass rush production game was Charlotte, where he had 20% of his, actually more than 20% of his entire pressures on the season came against Charlotte. There wasn't a consistent pass rusher there from Caleb Banks. Could take the next step because last year was also his first time playing significant time on a defensive line. Spring game, he looked damn good. If he can carry that over into the regular season, that'd be great. Like I'd be happy if you get the spring game Caleb Banks in the regular season. I'm happy with it. Okay. Joey Slackman, I think he can contribute. I don't think he's ever going to be a premium pass rusher, but I think that you can look at times where you see Caleb Banks, Joey Slackman as the nose and the 3 tech respectively, and then you have them rush in there. Jamari Lyons had some nice flashes last year, but he wasn't a consistent contributor, just as in he wasn't playing enough for me to go, oh yeah, that's going to carry over easily. Edge rushers, who's proven? Who's proven as a pass rusher? Kelby not playing the edge this year, which is also kind of wild. I want to throw that out there. Like Kelby was wildly productive for a true freshman pass rusher. Not playing the edge this year. Tyreek Sapp, underwhelming as a pass rusher. Who else? TJ Searcy didn't do much as a pass rusher. It's not a knock. Again, I think TJ Searcy has the skill set to be really good. So does Kelby Collins. But as far as what's proven to come back, what's proven to contribute as a pass rusher, I've got doubts. I feel, and I will say this, I feel significantly more comfortable with this defensive line as far as defending the run goes this year. Because I think Joey Slackman has a lot of power in his game. Like you look at the spring game, he's eating double teams. Even if he's not winning, he's not losing. That's what I mean with like Caleb Banks. I felt like he either won or lost. There were very few stalemates. Sometimes a stalemate's good. Like sometimes you take that defensively. You can't win every rep. You just can't. But if you can go, hey, we won 30% of our reps, lost 20 and the other 50 were stalemates. I don't know about the actual math there, but I'm just saying like stalemates aren't always bad. When you're getting double teamed, if you can create a stalemate, you can count that as a win if you want. I think that you're getting double and having stalemate's a good job. Like that's one of the reasons I don't think I'm as low on Cam Jackson as a lot of people are. It's just because when you're eating doubles, sometimes like that's fine by me. If you're occupying blockers and you're not letting them move you around, that's the thing. Like that's what I mean when I say creating a stalemate when you're eating a double, is not letting them move you out and create a lane where they're clearly trying to create the lane. I mean, you just meet them at the point, you just hold steady. That's a win for me. I do think it is. So I'm not saying that the pass rush will be bad. I'm not saying the defensive line will be bad. What I am saying is that there is not a lot of proven talent and proven production at that defensive line spot as far as rushing the passer right now for 2025 or for 2024, or even 2025. I needed to get that off my chest so that we could talk about the Florida Gators offensive line in 2024. Today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel, and I love sports. I love them so much that I really never want them to stop. Even this All-Star break is killing me right now. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and sports just don't sport like we want them to, right? They don't. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app, dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. So there's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. And remember that FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day, every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. And we talked about the defensive line previously and where I stand on that, where I don't know what we're getting as far as pass rush plan or as far as pass rushers go on the defensive line, purely pass rushing. I don't. I feel pretty good about run defense. No matter who is at the edge spots, I feel pretty good. Offensive line now. I will say this. Last year's offensive line was horrendous. Understand a lot of injuries happened. You didn't have Kingsley Agwakin. You had to go to Jake Slaughter, and Kingsley would come back and then go out and come back and go out. And it was a constant snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap kind of moment, right? So that was with Kingsley. Both your tackle spots were riddled with injuries. And Keontae Goodwin left before the season started after transferring in from Kentucky. So then you look at this year, I feel a lot better about the offensive line heading into this season than I felt at the end of last season. Okay? Like end of last season, I was just like, this is a horrible, horrible, horrible offensive line. This year, I don't know if they'll be good. I feel very confident that they'll be better than they were last year. I feel pretty good about saying this line will be at least average. And honestly, average offensive line makes your offense a lot better. Helps your defense too, as far as sustained drives. Offense sustains more drives. Defense comes in with fresher legs. Rinse, repeat, right? So I will say, you look at the tackle spots. Austin Barber is back and healthy. High expectations for him, right? Because he's been the guy that we've been told for years now is, oh yeah, he's going to be an NFL guy easily. 2022, he rotated in and out. Good film for an inexperienced player. Good film for a redshirt freshman. Last year, was banged up a lot of the year. Even when he was healthy, there were some things that I was like, I don't like what I'm seeing. And even when he was banged up, there were some things where I'm like, I don't think that's relevant to a shoulder injury. Stuff like that just kind of threw me off there. But I'll wipe the slate clean and I'll say, hey, let's get into it. Both of your guards from last year are being replaced. Richie Leonard IV transferred to Florida State. Micah Mazuka transferred to Arkansas or Nebraska. And that's they're gone. Great. Damian George is stepping in at right guard. He will most likely be the starter, regardless of how some Florida Gators fans may feel about him, or regardless of how a lot of Florida Gators fans may feel about him. In my opinion, I think that based on the spring game purely, I think he was better at right guard than he was at right tackle. That being said, I don't necessarily think he was still good at right guard. Like when you watch the spring game, and if you're part of the insider program, you got this scouting report after the spring game. He was one of the first players we did. I think that Damian George, still at right guard, looked pretty good as a run defender or as a run blocker, which is what he looked good at right tackle last year. So I think he looked still good as a run blocker. And I think pass protection was still a major flaw of his, and blocking in space was still a major flaw of his. So I don't know if he's going to be good. I think that he'll be better at guard than he was at tackle. And I do think he's going to be your starter heading into the season. But I'm not sold yet. Center, Jake Slaughter. I'm excited for him. I'm Slaughter gang, ride or die. I think Jake Slaughter is a hell of a center. I think that you got maybe this year with him, and then he might be NFL bound. Just because his film in 2023 is really good. Genuinely, in my opinion. His film's really good. Think you see him with a full year, because now he's got the full offseason as a starter. He didn't go through fall camp last year, even as a starter. That was Kingsley, and Kingsley got hurt right before the season, and then Jake Slaughter had to step in. So I'm curious to see how the offensive line performs. I think Jake Slaughter could take a pretty big step here. Would like to see him put on a little bit more weight, pack on more pounds, pack more punch. Left guard, likely going to be Kanaijah Harris. I'm high on him. His film last year was good, albeit small sample size, but his film in high school was also really good. So I'm very confident there. And then right tackle, Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon came in from San Diego State. We've yet to see him go through an SEC schedule, right? Like, that's not even, I don't know why I said right. We know that. He's obviously not gone through an SEC schedule yet, because it's his first year in the SEC. We've seen him take on high-ranking teams here and there at San Diego State. We've seen him face pretty good edge rushers here and there at San Diego State, but we've never seen him do it throughout the entire course of a season. Devin Manuel also came in from Arkansas. I'm very skeptical of that one. I think he had a really rough spring game. I think that he's one of those players where you look at what happened with his career at Arkansas and you look at how they went, it kind of reminds me of Damian George, kind of, where it's like, oh, like, he had the starting job and then he got hurt and then he never got the starting job back, or he was a backup and then he became a starter because of injury, but like he didn't really earn that, like stuff like that. Where I look at it and I'm like, okay, I need to see it because I feel like there's a reason you weren't starting at the beginning of the season. You started a game due to injury and then you went back to the bench. It's weird to me. It's a little fishy to me of why you didn't win the starting job at any point, even when you took over for injury. Then you went back to the bench when the guy was healthy, and then there was another injury, and you came back to start there, and then you hit the portal. I don't know. It's just a weird situation for me. I don't think the spring game is good for Devin Manuel, but again, I'm not going to kill him for that. As I say, I'm not going to fault him. I'm going to fault him. I'm just not going to fault him too hard for that. First spring game, first game situation with a new school that you just transferred to. I'm not going to be too rough on it, but I'm skeptical. And the reason that I think it was relevant to talk about the defensive line is that we saw Brandon Crenshaw-Dickson play pretty decent in the spring game. We saw Damian George struggle as a pass rusher. But that was against the defensive line where we don't know what we're going to get, because the only film we've got of this defensive line together and this offensive line together is against each other. That's it. That's the only film we have of these lines performing as a unit is against each other. And we don't know if that means, hey, the offensive line struggled against good defensive line. We don't know if that means that the defensive line had some guys generate a good pass rush against a good offensive line or a bad offensive line. We don't know. That's where I'm really skeptical. And then, of course, we can talk about recruiting on the trenches, really. To wrap up today's episode of Locked On Gators, we have to talk about recruiting a little bit, which means that one of these sides is going to be fun to talk about. The other one, not so much. 2024 class. Let's talk about the 2024 class there. 2024 was headlined on the defensive line by LJ McCray, right? The top defensive lineman in the country. I think he was the number 5 player in the country. I think DJ Lagway finished number 3. LJ finished number 5. And LJ was the number 1 defensive lineman in the country. I'm pretty confident we see LJ play at least a bit this year. I don't know how significantly, but I think that you see him at least as a rotational piece every game. And I think that he warrants that. I think he's a damn good football player. So I think that you see LJ quite a bit this year. Pretty confident that he's going to pan out. You look at the film from high school, you look at the film from college, you look at all the workouts that get posted, all those videos, and in every situation, LJ's thriving. LJ is succeeding in that moment. And so I think that you look at LJ and you're right. He's got the athletic ability. He's got the size. He's got some technique to go with him. Obviously, technique coming out of high school is always going to be the rough area. But you look at him and you go, you know what? And you look at who he's working with, BT Jordan, the pass rush coach. You look at him and you go, all right, I mean, I feel like I'm looking at someone that's going to develop to be a really good football player because he's got the physical tools. Seems like he's doing the technical work on the side. And in the weight room, he looks like he's doing a damn good job. Like, I feel like I'm watching someone with athletic ability work hard as hell to get better on that defensive line. Okay? Offensively, your trenches were headlined by Fletcher Westphal last year out of Tuscarora, Virginia. I think Fletcher has a really high ceiling. Genuinely. I want to make this clear if this is one of your first times watching this or first time hearing me talk about some of these kids. I don't just go, oh, every player has a really high ceiling. I recognize that that's not the case. Fletcher is one that I think has a really high ceiling. I hope he doesn't grow more height-wise because he's already 6'8". That's pushing it for being a quality offensive tackle, genuinely. You hear football, low man wins. You're not going to be the low man often if you're damn near 7 feet tall. So for Fletcher, I hope he stays at 6'8". But ceiling wise, I think he's got a couple of things that make me kind of buy into him. And I will say, I don't think he's going to play this year. I don't think he should. Spring game wasn't great for him. But I think Fletcher has the size, the athleticism, and the demeanor to play offensive line at a high level. And by that, I mean, when you're coming out of high school, if you've got size and athleticism, that's great. A lot of coaches are going to look at you and go, man, we get the technical aspect down and you're going to be really good. And Florida's done that with 3-star guys, size, athleticism, see what we can get from them. Some guys don't have the nasty to play on the offensive line successfully because you've got to, first off, you got to be a special kind of sick in the head to want to play it. I'm going to be completely honest. You got to be a special kind of lunatic to do it and to do it well. And I think Fletcher has that kind of sick in the head bit that he can play offensive line at a high level successfully. Okay. That's where I'm like, okay, I think you're going to be really good as long as the coaching coaches you up properly. Like the only thing you got to do, hit the weight room, develop the technical aspect there. Hand placement, footwork, and needs a lot of work for Fletcher. I'm not even Fletcher's another guy where we wrote the scouting report for him in the spring game, and I was just like, look, he should not touch the field this year. He's got some things in his game that show you, hey, you could be really good. He had some flashes in the spring game. A lot of flaws. Needs a lot of work technically, and that's fine. I don't want offensive linemen playing as freshmen anyway, so that's fine by me. I've got no issues with that. Then you talk about recruiting for the 2025 class. Defensive line recruiting has been pretty good. I'm going to be out. Jalen Wiggins is your highest rated player, I think unanimously. I think all the recruiting services have Jalen Wiggins as the highest rated Florida Gator 2025 commit. Fine by me. I think Jalen Wiggins, one of those guys where he's got a high ceiling. Jeremiah McLeod. And by Jalen Wiggins, I mean high ceiling. He needs a lot of work as well. But high ceiling, has some physical tools he can't teach. It looks like his arms are insanely long. I don't even know what his listed height is, but I'm going to go based off his listed height of 6'4.5". I'm going to say he's got a 6'8", 6'9" wingspan right now, if not a bit bigger, because he's also got a barrel chest there. So it wouldn't shock me if his wingspan's even longer than that. So I think that he's got those kind of physical tools. Jeremiah McLeod, really quick first step. I think he could be a pretty damn good pass rusher from the interior. I'm not too sold on run defense and the hand fighting aspect, but he's got a really quick first step. And when he doesn't win with that, he tends to win with relentless effort. Like I don't know about the technique. He's got a lot of work to do there, but you got someone with a quick first step and a relentless motor. At the very least, I'll take that in my class as a guy that I look at and I say, hey, you can be one of our an F that also plays the 3-tech, the big end spot. Like you could be that for me. And I'm cool with it. Even if it's just situationally, I'm cool with it. Offensive line, I can't even add. There's not an offensive line commit for the Florida Gators in the 2025 class. Just zero. There's none. No offensive line commit for the 2025 class. Haven't really had much traction with them either. I know that there were some blue chip offensive linemen where it was like, hey, Florida apparently backed off of them. I don't know why the hell they did that. I strongly disagree with it. I think that you are at a position with your program and with your offensive line recruiting specifically, you should not be turning away blue chip players. Simple as that, honestly. I am very bearish on offensive line recruiting right now. I think a positive season with decent offensive line play can help you, but you look at last year where the offensive line was, your year 2 under Rob Sale and Darnell Stapleton, and obviously Darnell Stapleton is no longer there. He's with the Commanders now. But offensive line year 2 was really bad, considering offensive line year 1 was pretty good. So offensive line year 2, you can look at it and say, hey, maybe they regressed a bit. This year will be different. It's year 3 under Rob Sale, year 1 with Jonathan DeCoster. Offensive line recruiting needs to get better, but I also think that this is a position where there's some spots we go, oh, you win games, you'll get kids who want to play. I think this is one of those spots where you go, hey, your offensive line improves. You'll get kids. You'll convince kids that you can develop them because you can't just ride the Osiris Torrance coattails, the Robert Hunt coattails, the Max Mitchell coattails forever. At some point, you've got to adjust and adapt and develop SEC offensive linemen that make it to the NFL, not just the one. That's where I stand on it. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free reviews in the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow. Talk more Florida Gators football for Locked On Gators. I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my dynasty work with Whole Line Sports. It's WHOLENINE Sports on YouTube. And I'll see you all next time.